So welcome back to the Plana podcast. Since our last episode, we called it Stick to the Planner, which I thought was a really fun name. But as we've kind of gone through, we've actually changed the name to Plana Good Life.
Oh, love it.
That's nice.
Nice.
Which I kind of like because the idea is we help women to plan a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts our kind of brand name right in there. Who came up with that?
I don't know.
I don't know. We were just around a whiteboard one day and we just wrote a bunch of different things on it. And then we were giving out stickers the other day that all said Plan a Good Life on them and people seemed to really like them.
Yes, I love that.
So welcome back to what is newly named Plan a Good Life. Kylie is back and Hi. I'm Phoebe, and this here is Tracy Paglia, who's been kind of working with us on our team and is just here to share an amazing story today. So I'm excited about this.
Me too.
Yeah. How are you feeling? Are you a regular podcaster? Is this a first-time podcast for you?
Not a bit. First-time podcast. I've been presenting for years and up in front of groups, but never a podcast. So this is exciting.
Cool. This is fun. Well, honestly, I think our last few chats were just like us sitting, having a yap, pretty much replicating what we do on a regular Saturday night on our couch. So.
We talk a lot, but then you put us in front of a camera. I'm like, oh, I'm so shy.
Much shyer. Awesome. Well, let's maybe start with let's just kind of dive straight into your story. You and I met at a conference earlier this year right here in Vegas.
Yep.
And I just presented Planner and what we were doing. And you just walked up to me and were just briefly in 30 seconds shared your story and just said you wanted to connect. And when we did connect, it was so encouraging. So maybe I'll just turn it over to you. And if you just want to give us a little bit of your story and we'll just kind of interject with some questions along the way.
Sure. Love to. So I'm a birth mom and man, it's been a huge part of my life and who knew where it was going to go. So I was 18 in college and had been dating my boyfriend for 6 months, a little over 6 months when we found out we were pregnant. And all of the emotions and everything that go into that. So we decided immediately that adoption was the direction that we were going to choose to go. I was not ready to be a mom. I was a sophomore at that point in college. And a lot of things that I wanted to do and didn't feel equipped yet to be a parent. And talked it over with my boyfriend, and we talked with my parents who were shocked, I guess, would be a good way to say it, but very supportive of whatever direction we decided to go. So I went through my sophomore year very pregnant because Ben was born in May. So as you can imagine, I was going into finals just very pregnant in a very small town where my parents were very involved with the church. So there was a lot of questions and judgments along the way that we'll get into more. But ultimately, my then fiance at the time was off being stampeded by buffalo in the Yellowstone area for school when Ben was born. So he wasn't able to meet his son until 19 years later when we reconnected with Ben. We did not go through an agency. We kind of did of a family friend of a friend of a friend situation, and I had my parameters of what I was looking for in adoptive parents. And so we ended up going through that whole process. And then letters and pictures once a year until they stopped at some point, which they weren't supposed to, but they did. And then when they restarted up again, and when Ben turned 19, we got the letter saying he wanted to meet us. And we'll get into all of those details, but high level, we've reconnected. So he came back to us when he was 19. He's now 31. And we have such an amazing relationship, and he has full-blooded siblings, and it's incredible to have him back with us. I'm so thankful for the process.
That's so beautiful because I don't think I've ever heard an adoption story like that before. This is you hearing it for the first time.
Yeah,
too,
I've never heard this, so I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's so, as we are looking to help women in that decision-making phase, it's the thing that is most kind of I'm curious about is the fact that you just already knew that adoption was the option that you wanted to explore. What kind of went into that? What do you think was the reason that was kind of front of mind for you?
So I grew up Catholic, but that didn't weigh so much into my decision as just I knew that was the right decision for me. I never considered abortion. I didn't know anyone at the time who had had an abortion. I also didn't know anyone at the time who had been through adoption. So it's not like there had been messaging or discussions or exposure to adoption at that point in my life. I just knew that of my three options that I saw, that adoption was the one that would give Ben the best chance to have a family who was stable emotionally and financially and maturity level. We wanted him to have siblings, so choosing a family who already had a sibling was really important because I'm one of 5. So the idea of being an only child wasn't in the picture. So we were able, through choosing adoption, to form at least the start of what we wanted his life to look like, knowing that at 18, there was no way I was ready to be a parent and provide as much emotional support as a baby would need, as I myself was still growing up and making decisions and choosing what direction my life was going to go.
Yeah.
Wow, you sound so like, I guess looking back on it now, you've obviously had a lot of life experience and everything like that, but what was that kind of like for you finding out that you were pregnant? I guess you were 18 years old, very green. What was that moment like?
Just this overwhelming, what in the world am I going to do now? Fortunately, I had very strong family support, which I know is not the case for a lot of women who find themselves with unplanned pregnancies, especially if they're away at college and they don't have their normal support network that they might have. So very overwhelming. The whole time was very overwhelming. Finding out I was pregnant, going and telling my parents, which was very hard to do, and then carrying a baby where everyone is asking you, what are you naming it? Are you having a boy or a girl? When is the baby shower? Because the automatic assumption is that you're carrying a child and you're going to keep it. And that was not ever my plan. So I had a lot of very tough discussions with people. And I was just very frank, and no one knew how to respond to that. But the initial finding out I was pregnant, there was no resources or anything for me to go to. I didn't even know where to begin to start to find out about adoption or how I would even go about that. Being in a small town, it's not like we had an adoption center that, I don't even begin to know where I would have gone. So I was fortunate enough to be in an educated family and an educated background. So I felt equipped to be able to contact an attorney who could help find someone, and family was willing and able to talk to other people who might find an appropriate home for the child. So just the thought of not having that support, I don't know how I would have come to that decision 31 years ago.
Yeah, wow. The thing that, like, as we start to work with women and as we're trying to kind of help them see their life, see a picture of their future kind of through pregnancy and kind of beyond, it must be a lot to balance just being pregnant with continuing like all your life responsibilities, whether it's college or whether it is family or relationships or different things. Like, how was that kind of balance with exams and kind of everything you had going on in your life? Pregnancy's no joke. I haven't been pregnant. You haven't been pregnant, but we've asked a lot of women, and it's no joke, right?
No, it's no joke. And I was so fortunate to have easy pregnancies. I know so many people who do not.
Yeah.
So being young and healthy, the physical part of it wasn't too bad. The first trimester wasn't too bad, but once you start showing and getting more questions, that became the hard part. And I continued full load of school, and I was working part-time, and I mean, just the insane schedules that you have when you're in college to begin with, and then you're either sick or tired or, all of the other physical elements that come with being pregnant. So I ended up for the last trimester working at night at a nursing home so that the toll on me was as minimal as possible while I was still earning money to go continue through school. But I remember so many times finding little nooks and crannies on campus that I could go take a nap in the middle of the day, which now I really I take naps anyway. But, in college, you're keeping all sorts of weird hours, but adding pregnancy on top of that, it's like, all right, my body is telling me it's now time to eat, regardless of what I want to do, or it's time to sleep. And we'll just make do until, Ben was born nice and healthy and off to his new family.
Wow. And obviously, like the process of pregnancy, you get a lot of hormones and all these things that are starting. So how did you feel? Like, did you have moments where you were like, oh, maybe I'm going to go back on this decision, or, you're getting attached to this child and obviously people are asking you questions. How did that go throughout the pregnancy journey?
I don't remember ever going back on the decision while I was pregnant. I spent a lot of time in church and in prayer just trying to get through the emotions of being pregnant, but always knowing that this was not a child I was going to keep. We hadn't named him. When he was born, we gave him a name at the last minute so that it wasn't baby boy on the birth certificate. But I didn't go through a normal bonding process with him when I was pregnant because I always knew that he was not mine to raise. But I had the thought when he was born and I saw him of, well, maybe we could keep him because we were engaged at that point. And, thinking that all of those hormones and everything, and everything in you is wanting to take care of this child. And so I held him when he was born, and my parents were there for me since my fiance was out of town. So my parents got to meet him, and my little brothers, I have a picture of them with him. And then I left the hospital 12 hours after he was born, and I left him in the hospital. So I went back with my dad the following day. But that was the only time when he was born and I first held him that I had the momentary thought of, I should consider if I should keep him. But that thought only lasted maybe 10 or 15 minutes because it was very clear in my mind and in my heart that this child was born for another family to raise who weren't able to have their own.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. What are you like? So I've just talked to so many people. Adoption's it's such an interesting thing because no story is the same. And so there's a lot of good stories and there's a lot of bad stories of, whether it was unethical agencies or just not the right thing for that particular woman. When you do hear people saying negative things about adoption or negative things about like, oh, the mother's supposed to raise the child, like it's unnatural, like anything like that, how do you as a birth mother kind of talk to people who have kind of negative perceptions about adoption?
Like you're right that every situation is different. And when you're making the decision to place a child for adoption, you are in that time giving that child the best answer that you can, given your circumstances, whatever reason it may be to place that child for adoption. And you can't control what happens after that. So no situation is perfect. Ben's parents ended up getting divorced when he was 10, which is why the letters and pictures stopped. So I would never have wanted my child to go into a divorced family situation and all of the issues that went with that. But at that time, I couldn't possibly know. So I would say to someone who has their opinions on the child should always be raised by their biological family, my counter to that is the foster system is overwhelmed with children who are abused and neglected and should never have been in that family. So if those women had ever even thought that their child would go down that path, maybe they would have considered adoption with a family who was more equipped and able to take care of that child.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point because this is the thing that keeps coming up. People equating like private infant adoption with foster adoption and hearing an adoption story from a foster system a story that went bad and saying, well, all adoption is bad, when both foster adoption and private infant adoption have really beautiful stories that come out of it. How would you, I don't know, for people who've just got one negative story and they're kind of placing their whole case on that, what would you say kind of in that scenario?
I would say you can't look at a complicated situation like adoption is and draw conclusions from one situation. Just like you can't draw the conclusion that abortions always go fine. You just go in, it's a problem, and you've taken care of it. That's not the case at all. I've talked to many women who have had abortions who years later are dealing with the mental trauma of that. So you can't take any situation, whether it's adoption or keeping the child yourself or having an abortion, and lay that over all situations.
And I think that's a really great point. And I think that's so key to like the ethos of what we're trying to create here at Plana, because, we've had some nasty comments that are like, stop forcing women to, place their babies for adoption. And we're like, well, we're not forcing anyone. Like, if this isn't the right situation for you, then that's fine. Like, go find another resource and we'll help connect you to that. This isn't about saying this is your only option. This is about saying this is an option you should consider because maybe you haven't heard about it, or maybe, you do have an outdated kind of misconception of it based on one story you heard or based on just a lack of information, right? But yeah, it is an option that I don't know if many young women really consider. Like, I don't know, if you felt like any of your friends had an unplanned pregnancy, like, do you think that adoption would be on the kind of list of options?
I don't know. Like, we've just been talking a little bit about it today and off camera, and it just seems like adoption got outdated, within the last 20 years or something like that. But I have people in my family who are adopted as well, and it's just the most beautiful, the best adoption stories ever. And I think, why is that so inaccessible? Like, so I don't know if my girlfriends would. I don't know if I would. Like, I think, I think, again, if you're not talking about it, then it might be something that is just not at the forefront of people's minds, or they only know the bad stories. So I'm not sure.
But yeah, it is such a weird thing because we all know about it.
Yeah.
We often all know someone or, know a story about adoption. But then in that decision-making moment, we hear that so many women just don't think of it or just don't have resources right at their fingertips. What was kind of the kind of first, you said it was a lawyer, was the first person you kind of got in contact with that started that process, but you had kind of the onus on you to reach out, right, and kind of make that happen.
Yep. So when I talked with my parents about it, we had just found out like 2 days before. We didn't wait very long to tell them because I knew I was going to need support through the process, and I told them that was the plan. And then we didn't do anything about it until, I think it was maybe the end of the first trimester. But we spoke the whole time that was the plan. And so when my mom talked with a friend who talked with a friend who talked with a family member, round about the middle of the second trimester is when we got the name of the potential family and got some information about them. And I got an attorney who was the mom of a friend of mine, because it's a small town, got Anne involved in being the liaison. So I don't know how else I would have gone about it in a small town like that, because I can't think of any adoption resources that we had in our town, in the next town over. I probably would have had to go 90 miles away to the larger metro area to find someone with experience in adoption, and there was no way I was going to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that God's hand was in this process and found the family for us and made it as smooth as it could have been.
That's so amazing to hear. And I think that's the big thing that we're passionate about, giving access to resources to, and then kind of post-placement support and, up to placement support as well. So we might kind of end it there and then maybe have another chat about, what's it like in the post-placement kind of space. We'll see you in the next episode.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.